Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. I hope all of you are staying busy out there in this brutal stretch of weather that we're having. I know having a home inspection in this kind of heat is absolutely no fun right now. So wherever you're listening to this podcast, I hope that you are nice and cool at the present moment. In today's podcast, we're going to be speaking with Nicholas Carini from Carini Financial. Nicholas is a graduate from St. Joe's University. He has a bachelor's degree in financial planning, and he has his certified financial fiduciary designation. He is a great person to talk to because most of us in our business, especially when we get into the business as newer agents, we don't have a plan financially. You know, we are considered an independent contractor, but we are business owners. We own our own business and we are responsible for our financial future. So we're going to get into that financial planning and specifically talk a little bit about your retirement as a real estate agent and making our money work for us into the future, into our retirement, and position us best for those retirement years. It doesn't matter whether you're young or old, you can always be saving money for your future. So if you're driving in your car right now and you just got a commission check and you're on your way to buy diamond-studded sign riders for your next listing, you may want to listen to this podcast first. So let's get into some financial planning with Nicholas Carini, and we'll pick it up on the other side. So Nicholas, first of all, thank you for being here with us. I really appreciate your time today.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate the opportunity. I'd say you hit the nail right on the head. I was a 1099 consultant just like a realtor would be for many years until we did the LLC and started to become a company. My father started this over 31 years ago, and so it's kind of adapted and grown into what it is today. But in the beginning, for sure, I was a 1099 consultant just like a realtor would be. So one of the things that you don't have at your fingertips is that 401k plan that most people working for a corporation are used to, where maybe the employer is matching some money to their retirement plan. Maybe the employees are taking it right out of their salary, which as 1099, we don't know what salary means. Or they have a pension plan, which those are kind of going by the wayside. We'll talk about that in the future. But, when you're a 1099, it's not constantly on your mind. It's easy to, forget about it. And then as you approach retirement, oftentimes it's too late, or you have to save a lot in order to catch up. So it is something that I appreciate you, bringing the education to the people, if you will. We like to lead with education here. I am a certified financial fiduciary, which means that I have to give the education and provide what's in the interest of the client first over my own. So one of the things that we lead with, like I said, is education. And it'd be important for people to understand that retirement is not something that is set in stone and that is provided for you. Social Security, there's a lot of controversy of, is it going bankrupt? Will it be there when I'm there? Will policy change to fund it in the future? With all that put aside, Social Security was really created to cover about 40% of someone's income in retirement, which leaves a big 60% gap. And so that's where your personal savings will come in. And I had a CFP, Certified Financial Planner professor, who always liked to say in school, what you sacrifice now is what you get in retirement. So a lot of people, because of culture today, want the new this, the house, the car, whatever. And that's great for while you're living, but it doesn't really promote your retirement. And most people overlook that. So very great point to add there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, this is one of those topics where I feel like we're always kicking the can down the road, right? As 1099s often do. And it is easy to get caught up in, we're commission based and we get that check and we don't want to put any of that money aside. Yeah. I hope that many of my realtor friends out there do have a tax account that they're pulling, some commission money from, or a 401k like you had mentioned. So sure. The easiest question I'm going to ask you right now, just to start off with, is, why would it be important for a real estate agent to consult someone like yourself, right? You have that knowledge, but why do we need to talk to you in terms of our retirement? Why is that important to us?
Yeah, so that's a very large question. It's all trying to unpack it into little bits.
I tried to keep it as broad as humanly possible.
No, absolutely, that's great. So, firstly, when somebody would work in a company, they would have a pension. Back in the day, some of the older realtors, not to press on age here, but some of the older realtors might have worked at a different company before they went into real estate. And they might have what's called a pension, which would be like a monthly income for them for life, kind of like Social Security. And some time ago, there was a shift from pensions to 401k plans, or, in realtors' cases, self-directed retirement accounts. Now, the problem with that is it made every individual out there, whether you were a teacher, a nurse, a realtor, it made you a financial advisor, or at least have to be one overnight. You're supposed to have an advisor at work, that has the 401k that can help guide you through what to invest in. But as a 1099 consultant, you typically don't have access to that at work. So it's important to contract a financial advisor. Look for fiduciary in that, because they're putting your best interests first, and interview a couple of them if you'd like. They'll be able to guide you on what your budget is currently, what your lifestyle's like, what your tax situation should be. Now, they're not accountants, and I'm not an accountant, but we collaborate with accountants and attorneys, kind of like your quarterback, to be able to make sure that, you had a great year this year. Okay, well, you're going to need some write-offs or a deduction. 1099s are notorious for, I did all this stuff. I need some write-offs. So those checks, especially sending those quarterly tax payments in, it's not fun. So having a deduction in a retirement account, and having an advisor that can say, look, to have this type of lifestyle down the road, you need to be putting away this much per year. And secondly, this is what it should be invested in. And that's another $1 million question for, why have a financial advisor?
Yeah, Nicholas, I really needed you this past year. I got to tell you, because I put money away for taxes, but, just full disclosure, I had, with the market being the way that it is, I had a decent year last year. And
Excellent.
When it came tax time, I nearly fell out of my chair with what I had to pay. And here I am thinking, like, I'm spending money on marketing, and I'm doing a lot of stuff, and I'm paying a lot of money out. But in the end, I was woefully short, probably about where I should have been in my spending. And the tax bill was not fun. Let's put it that way this past year.
So I can speak from experience on that. I'm not an accountant, so I'm not trying to espouse to be one. But what we oftentimes happen is it's an estimate, right? And the federal government wants you, or the IRS wants you to pay these nice, pretty estimates. Well, when you're a 1099, if you had a crummy first quarter and your estimate's based off of a banger last year, how are you supposed to have the money to pay that quarterly tax bill?
Yeah.
And vice versa. If you're having a great year this year and you didn't have a great year last year because the market went through the roof, or you're just doing really well this year, it's a 1099 world. Now your estimates are way low. And so you're going to owe a big tax bill at the end of the year. One of the ways you can avoid at least some of that tax bill is by putting away into a retirement account.
Yep. And I think, obviously that's what I probably should have done. Maybe I will do in the future. But that's why you're here. So the average age of most real estate agents, I think most agents know this, but the average age of a realtor, it kind of fluctuates between 53 to 57 years old. Right. And as we get older, and you had mentioned before, most of us may have been coming from a different career before we got into real estate. And maybe we have a pension, maybe we have some other things. If we get closer to that retirement age, what's the best way to start planning your retirement? I mean, if you were giving one bit of advice to maybe some of the agents that are closer to the retirement age, where should they start with the retirement plan?
So they should always start by trying to find help, professional help. So I like to give a little shout out to each pillar, in my opinion, of finance. So first pillar is an accountant. Make sure you have a good accountant. I'm not going to knock any houses or anything like that. If you have a great relationship with an accountant already, or you need one, definitely seek that out. A good quality accountant is going to review your books every single year. Going to sign off on your return for you, as well as help you make the decision. Like I said, collaborate with a financial advisor on, you should do this much in this type of an account, and this is the benefit it'll give you as far as a write-off or deduction for your taxes. So definitely have that pillar locked down, which is an accountant. I think everybody can go and enlist the services. Some people are nervous. I don't really want to pay $200 or $300, whatever the accountant costs for that. The money that they can save you by doing their job properly is more often than not worth it. Secondly, the other pillar of finance is an attorney or a lawyer. Most people in that age group that you described, some of them may have wills, some of them don't have wills, or some of them are wills that have been written so far long ago they're not updated. And they call it a codicil, or like an amendment to a will. Most of the time it costs just about the same to do that as it would to just do a whole new will. So again, not an attorney, but as your quarterback for finance, I would say seek an attorney, get a will drawn up, especially depending on what state you live in. They have their own laws and regulations. But get a will drawn up that lists out how you want things to go. And then thirdly, find a financial advisor or fiduciary that can guide you through this whole process. It's hard enough. Retirement is scary enough, and it doesn't have to be. I think the industry that is financial planning has created itself to be these big words. It's almost Greek to everybody, and so it's got to be frightening, and it doesn't have to be. I think that if you find somebody, there's thousands of financial advisors out there. Find one that fits the way you like to do things. If they speak over your head, it's going to waste your time and theirs. So find a good match and put trust in them, because a lot of the time the people you work with are going to be steering the conversation towards your benefit, but you may not grasp every single thing because it's just not what you do for a living. So find someone that you can trust as your advisor. That would be the first place to start.
That's great advice. So, we talked about as we get closer to retirement age, but, a strategic retirement plan may be age dependent, right?
Yes.
So what are some recommendations on the opposite end? If you're a younger agent, age wise, getting into the business, and this is going to be your career for the long haul, right? How is that going to be different from, say, an older agent that may have a pension or coming from a different career? What would you recommend to a younger agent just starting out, and this is going to be their career for the next 40 years? What would you say to them?
So I'll answer that one first, and then I'll kind of address, the 53 to 57-year-old for that. So when you're younger, you have a lot more time for compounding to happen, which means your money making money on itself. And so you don't need as high of an interest rate, and you don't need to save as much because you're letting time and the time value of that money compounding on itself work for you. So it's great to start young. It's going to relieve the burden later. And it'll relieve the burden on you, because when you're starting out, you're not making that much money, typically. As you get into those later years, typically the 53-year-old to 57-year-old average range, maybe you're a very seasoned real estate agent or worker in whatever field you're in, and you're making the money that you hope to have made over those years, so you can stock more away. So you could catch up towards the end, depending on how much you're making per year. But in the beginning, start small. I know that taking $50 a month is even sometimes tight for some agents starting out. I get that. But as long as you train your brain to consistently do this, pretty soon it'll just become habit. And as you do a pay increase because you made more money, scale that up, because you're already used to living at that level. So as long as you scale it up with your earnings, it won't be too burdensome to you, as opposed to seeing the new dollar, seeing the extra money, and then going out and saying, oh, I can buy this now. Try and scale that up. Another thing one of my professors used to always say was live like a college student. If you're starting out and you're 22, you just graduated college and went right into real estate, you're used to living on nothing. I used to work here in the summers when I was in school, and you try and save as much as you could to get you through the semester. So you're used to budgeting, you're used to living on a small amount of money. And so if you can apply that to your first couple of years, and not be tempted to go out and buy a brand new car or buy this just yet, that'll come in time. But to save a little bit of that and get on those good habits young, it's just going to set you up for a good future. Now, to the 53 and 57-year-old, if you haven't started saving, or maybe you have savings from another job, continuing it at your current place of employment, being, as a realtor, would be beneficial, just so that you can keep those habits going. Switching from a career where it comes out of your pay automatically, where you don't really see it, to now all of a sudden, oh, I have to do it on my own after the fact. That's a big change. So making sure you do that from the start gets those habits starting to roll from day one.
Yeah, I mean, such is life, right? A lot of what we do is the habits that we have every day. And there's shout out to the book Atomic Habits that basically it basically says that we are our habits, and financially it's the same thing. We are our habits financially. So we have to be sound in that regard. So I like to sound smart a lot of times, and I'll throw out diversifying your portfolio. So. Sure. So let's get into that a little bit. What is the best way to diversify our retirement portfolio so we protect ourselves? This year was, the first year I had mentioned this on a previous podcast, that one of my goals was to have an investment property, right? And invest in more real estate. I have a retirement account. What are some of those things where we can diversify to protect ourselves financially?
Sure. So with any investment, there's going to come some sort of risk, whether it's, in the market or, I guess a risk for having a savings account is that it's the interest rates are so low right now. So you have interest rate risk there. But when it comes to investing in a market, you're subject to the market going up and the market coming down. So on a macro or a large level, look at like a bird's eye view of the market. Where are we in the current market cycle? Are we at the peak? Could it keep going up? Are we about to head downward? What should I do? And one of the ways you can try and mitigate some of that, entry risk, if you will, of putting all your money in at the top or at the bottom, or not knowing where we are in the cycle, is to diversify. So some people don't have enough money to have a real estate investment property. So there are plenty of real estate investment type vehicles like that act as like a mutual fund or a stock that you could purchase to get some exposure to that. Maybe only until you have enough money to go buy some real estate to have, rentals. Some people don't like being landowners. They don't want to, manage that property or whatever, or pay someone to do so. So they buy real estate inside of different holdings that you can get. The other way you can do it is to buy, mutual funds that if you don't know what a mutual fund is, for those of you who don't, it's basically a picnic basket of all sorts of different stocks inside of one fund. So I might have Apple and Disney and Coca-Cola and Exxon, all different industries, all different types of companies, but they're all in this one nice, pretty package, and I can buy that. If I tried to go and buy, each one share of each of the things in a mutual fund, I'd run out of money. Amazon's over $3,000 a share. I don't have that, just to spend on one share. But if I buy this mutual fund that's priced at maybe $10 a share, that I can buy, and I can buy quite a bit of it. So by investing in just that one mutual fund, I have exposure to all of these different companies. And although markets somewhat move in sympathy with each other, if one company falls, some of the other ones might teeter a little bit with them. You are more diverse, where the thinking is, if one of them goes out of business, I still have these 999 out of 1,000 doing well. So that's one way. Just investing into a mutual fund, or the new kid on the block, in my way of saying it, is an ETF, an exchange traded fund. They're being thrown out there now. They're kind of like a mutual fund. They trade in real time like a stock. So as soon as you click sell, they sell. And they're typically cheaper as an operating expense. So more of the gain of that product is going into itself rather than to expenses for operating the fund. So that's why I call them the new kid. They're a little cheaper and they're a little bit more agile.
Yeah, I do see those all over the place now. And so I'm glad you explained that, because I always wondered, what was the difference between that and, say, a mutual fund,
Sure. Very close. You can also specialize them. So some people say, I just want an ETF that holds tech stocks. So, you're going to have all the tech stocks in that basket. You're not going to have an ExxonMobil or a Disney. It's just going to be tech. You could say, I want one just in healthcare or housing, whatever you want to specify. I have one that's about gold. Some people say, I want to buy gold or silver. And if you do, and you go buy a bar of gold, you have to go take that back to somebody and exchange it for cash when you want to use it, as opposed to buying like a gold ETF on your brokerage account, clicking sell, put the cash in your bank account, and then go spend it. So there's a little bit more ease and flexibility with doing something just like that.
Yeah, I assume, obviously doing it that way rather than holding a bar of gold would be the easier way to go about
Cool,
things. Yeah, it would be very cool to carry a bar of gold around with myself everywhere I go. So let's talk about life events, because, one thing, I am no stranger to is that a few years back, I had some, I had mentioned this before, I had some health issues. I could not sell real estate for a little while.
Okay.
And it was very scary. I mean, I had some money saved up, but you're kind of burning through that. And all the while, you're potentially paying for, let's say, a health crisis out of pocket, right?
Sure.
Unfortunately, many people out there get cancer, and financially it can be very, very hard on them. So what is the best way, would you say, to kind of mitigate, let's say, a health crisis or another crisis in life where you're unable to potentially pay bills, or the money is dwindling pretty quickly? How do you protect yourself against a situation like that?
So I'm licensed on the financial advisory side and insurance. As far as insurance goes, there's life insurance, health insurance, disability, and a myriad of others. So one way is to get life insurance, where a lot of them have, they build a death benefit, getting some sort of a whole life insurance policy or term life insurance policy or anywhere in between. And some of them have what's called a terminal illness rider or a chronic illness rider on there, where they'll allow you to access some of that death benefit before you pass on. So if you did have, unfortunately, you come down and you have cancer and it's deemed terminal, you could access, part of your death benefit to help pay, medical expenses or burial or whatever the case may be, ahead of time for while you're living. So that's one caveat, that out of life insurance policies, look for some of those little riders or something in there. A lot of the time they're free. But having a financial advisor kind of compare and contrast the two insurance policies, seeing not only am I paying for a death benefit, but I'm also paying, this policy is an extra $2 a month, but I get all of these extra things. That would help in the case of something happens where you're out of work or God forbid, terminally ill or chronically ill. As far as, I had I'm disabled for a couple of months. I can't work. That's where the health side comes in. So I'm not licensed there, but I do know that you can get disability insurance as a 1099, sole prop. We have people here at the office that do that, and it comes in handy. If you get disabled on the job or just disabled where you can't work, it'll, flip on and you'll have some of your income replaced by, that disability policy. So it'll get you a base to bridge you through that gap.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, all that, it can be a very scary time. And obviously I wanted to ask you that question because there are agents out there that are going through that right now, and it's a scary thought to have. So, what is the most common mistake or pitfall that someone can make planning for their retirement? What do you see out there as something where maybe people think it's a good idea to do and maybe it's not? What is a common mistake that we make?
I think a lot of the common mistake is unfortunately what technology has given us, which is there's so much information out there, and as much as you try and get educated on something, there are a lot of different points of view or thoughts. And so I'll have people that say, "Oh, do you do what Susie Orman does, or do you do what this person does, or what about this or that?" And not knocking any of them, everybody has their own philosophy, and trying to get feedback from multiple financial advisors, although great to educate yourself, might derail something someone was trying to do for you on this hand, just because there was this saying here. So I would say that finding somebody that you can trust, that you agree with their approach, and then also it's a dialogue. So you may not be well versed in finances or financial planning or any of that stuff, any of the vehicles to pick from, but asking the financial advisor to break that down for you so you can say, I truly agree with what you're saying and I feel comfortable moving forward with that action plan. Or B, no, that I'm not just going to take your word for it. I need, I want to change this and let's make it work for me. So one of the biggest issues is not enough communication with their advisor. I think that people oh, I went to a seminar. Well, bring that up to me. It's great. I love that you went to the seminar and you saw a different financial advisor. I'm open to that because they might have had something. I'm not going to say I'm the greatest. I know every single thing that's out there. It's impossible to. But if they have something that you really like and you want me to bring it to the table, I at least can research that for you and see how it'll fit in, or no, it won't. And there's a bait and switch, and here's why not. So I think getting information is great to educate people, but there's a lot of bad information out there. And a lot of that comes from how they're being compensated behind the scenes.
What's so interesting about listening to you with that answer is that you sound like a real estate agent.
Yeah.
And your wife is in the business. So you probably hear this all the time, is that, and this actually is going to lead me into my last question with you, because I think we are both in an industry where many consumers think that they can do the job that we do, right? We have consumers that think that they can do the job of a real estate agent because, they may go online, they may look at a couple things, they may, do a little research, but that does not make them a real estate agent in the same way that someone can do the same for you. That does not make them a financial advisor. So I'm sure you feel the same way about, obviously, your business. So why is it important for someone out there to hire someone like yourself? What do you think is the most important factor? Why should they use you?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. The same answer for why should somebody use, you as a realtor. The main crux of it is we're educated and we do this as a profession so that we know what vehicles are out there that we have our fingertips on. Where if you speak to me and tell me, I have this goal I want to achieve in 5 years. Well, I already know. You just shout out a 5-year time horizon. I know what to listen to that you're going to say, where all of a sudden I'm going to be able to piece the vehicle that's right for you into that pigeonhole. So the first thing is it's important to get a financial advisor so they can pick the right vehicle for your objective. Okay, so that you guys can accomplish that. Ultimately, it's your money. It's not my money. So I want to make it do what you need it to do. But if you don't know what's out there for you, you're kind of in the water. A lot of people are watching TikTok right now, or they YouTubed something, and all of a sudden, like you said, they're now a professional in that industry. It's great to get educated. I'm not knocking that. It'll actually help our conversations along if you're a little bit familiar with it. But all too often, I have the person that says, "Okay, I'm coming to you, and this is what I want." Well, why are you coming to me then? I'm here to guide you and help you. But at the same token, be cautious of what you're seeing on there. Did they have a 5-minute disclaimer? Did they have something where they actually had to espouse this, or is it just some guy or lady that is putting this content out there? Maybe it worked for them once, but you don't hear the thousands of stories where it didn't. So I would just be cautious about what you're seeing, and then kind of fact check it. Go to a competent advisor and make sure that what you're hearing is truthful.
I think that's an excellent answer. I think that's a great place for us to stop. It was a great conversation, and man, do I need some financial advisement. Let's put it that way. At this point, you're just emphasizing that point to me as we speak. Thank you so much for having the conversation today, and hopefully we'll be talking to you in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks to Nicholas Carini for joining us on the podcast this week. And my takeaways from my interview with Nicholas were, number one, Nicholas talks about those 3 pillars of what you can do to help yourself in your financial future. That first pillar is having a good accountant and someone who can help you each year navigate through that tax information, save you money, and that's a good place to start. The second person is an attorney, someone that can draw up a will on your behalf. That's always good to have a will as you get older in life. Even as a young person, you should always have a will. And thirdly, have a good financial planner, someone that can act as that quarterback, as Nicholas puts it, and be able to coordinate the different parts of your financial portfolio. And that brings me to my second point, is to diversify that financial portfolio. Whether you're investing in a 401k or you're investing in real estate, maybe you have an investment property, or it's a mutual fund, even an ETF. These are always good investment opportunities to look at to make sure that you're putting your money in different places to protect your financial future. And lastly, always count on the experts that are out there. Just like we are experts in the real estate field, we should also rely on the experts who can help us with our finances. We would never recommend that a seller list their home without an agent. So why should we do the same when it comes to our finances and try and figure it all out by ourselves? Just like a good real estate agent, a financial advisor may be well worth the investment. That's the podcast for today. I thank you for listening. We'll see you in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest. Don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And as always, if you want to hear a certain topic that we haven't covered yet, don't be afraid to reach out to me, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. But in the meantime, stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. Investment advisory services are offered through IMES Wealth Management, an SEC registered investment advisor. IMES Wealth Management and Carini Financial are independent of each other. The firm only conducts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded from registration requirements. SEC registration is not an endorsement of the firm by the commission and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. The firm is not engaged in practice of law or accounting. Content should not be viewed as an offer to buy or sell any of the securities mentioned or as legal or tax advice. So I actually got through that without making too many mistakes. You remember the Micro Machines guy who talked really, really fast?
At the end of a commercial?
It was like the super fast talker. That's now what I need for the podcast.